The bottle shattered against the pavement. Glass scattered across the empty Lagos street as Prince Tobi staggered forward, laughing loudly to nobody in particular. The neon lights from the nightclub behind him flickered across his face while music thumped in the distance. "Another drink," he shouted toward the club door, even though he had already been thrown out. The bouncer crossed his arms. "Prince Tobi, you've had enough for tonight." Tobi waved him away lazily. "Enough? You don't know what enough is. Tonight is celebration," he slurred. He didn't even remember what he was celebrating. Maybe freedom. Maybe rebellion. Maybe the weight of being the only heir to the throne of King Adewale. Whatever it was, he was determined to drown it in alcohol. He adjusted the royal bead necklace hanging proudly around his neck, a handcrafted bead set made specifically for him as the heir to the throne. The bead carried his royal tag engraved carefully. It was priceless. It was sacred. It was supposed to never leave his neck. But that night, nothing felt important. Not tradition. Not the palace. Not the future. Not even himself. Tobi stumbled into the street. Cars sped past. Horns blared. The nightlife of Lagos roared around him, but he walked like a man with no destination. "Where am I even going?" he murmured. No answer came. He walked, and walked, and walked, until the city lights faded and the streets became quieter. Under a dim street lamp near an abandoned roadside, he noticed someone sitting on the ground. A woman. Her hair was tangled. Her clothes were torn and dirty. She rocked back and forth slowly, muttering words that didn't quite make sense. Everyone in that area knew her. One of the many forgotten souls of the city. A mad woman. But Tobi, drunk beyond reasoning, barely processed what he was seeing. He simply stared. The woman looked up suddenly. Their eyes met. For a moment the night went silent. Then she laughed strangely. Prince Boy lost his way," she said in a broken voice. Tobi blinked. How? How did you know I'm a prince?" he asked, his words heavy with alcohol. She pointed at his neck. "The bead," she whispered. Tobi touched it. "Oh, this thing." He laughed loudly. "This old royal nonsense." He sat beside her on the ground like she was an old friend. "You know something?" he said. "Everyone thinks being a prince is sweet." She stared at him. "But nobody asks what I want," he continued. "Nobody asks if I even want the throne." The woman suddenly leaned closer. "You are sad," she said. Tobi looked surprised. "Sad? Me? I'm a billionaire prince." She tilted her head. "Still sad." He stared at her for a long moment. Then he laughed again. "You're funny." The night dragged on. Words blurred. Thoughts faded. And somewhere in the darkness of that drunken moment, a mistake happened. A moment Tobi would not remember. A moment that would change many lives forever. 9 months later, rain poured heavily under the third mainland bridge. Traffic rushed above. Below the bridge, the forgotten people of Lagos slept on cartons and old cloth. Among them was the same mad woman. But tonight she was screaming. "Ah! My stomach! My stomach!" People gathered around. "Something is happening," one woman shouted. "Call Mama Saad," another yelled. Mama Saad, an older street woman who had helped deliver babies before, rushed forward. "What happened?" "She has been crying all night." Mama Saad looked closer. Then her eyes widened. "This woman is in labor." "Labor?" someone shouted. "How? Who could touch a mad woman?" Nobody knew. Nobody had ever seen her with a man. But the truth didn't need witnesses. Nature had already decided. Hours later, a cry pierced the air. Then another. Mama Saad held 2 small babies in her arms. "Twins," she announced loudly. The small crowd gasped. "Twins? Who is the father?" The mad woman lay on the ground, breathing heavily. She looked at the babies. Then she smiled strangely. "The prince," she whispered. Everyone laughed. "The prince," someone mocked. "Yes," she repeated softly. But no one believed her. She reached beside her torn wrapper and picked up something she had kept hidden for months. A bead necklace. Royal. Heavy. Beautiful. The tag attached to it carried a name. Prince Tobi. She held it tightly. "My children's father," she murmured. 13 years later. The Lagos sun was brutal. Traffic stretched endlessly across the expressway. Cars honked impatiently. Between the vehicles, a skinny teenage boy walked carefully holding a plastic bowl filled with sachet water. "Cold water. Pure water," he shouted. Drivers ignored him. Some waved him away. But he kept moving from car to car. His name was Tay. Sweat dripped down his face. But around his neck hung something unusual. A royal bead necklace. Old, but still beautiful. Most people assumed it was fake. But it wasn't. It was the same bead Prince Tobi lost 13 years ago. Under the bridge not far away lived his family. His twin brother Taiwo. And their mother, the mad woman. She had given the bead to Tay years ago. "Your father owns this," she had told him. "Who is my father?" he asked. "The prince." He never understood. But he kept the bead anyway, because it was the only clue to a life that felt like a mystery. Elsewhere in Lagos, a black Rolls-Royce crawled slowly through traffic. Inside sat Prince Tobi, now 35 years old. Sharp suit, expensive watch, royal confidence. But something had always bothered him for years. His royal bead had disappeared one night long ago. No matter how hard he searched, he never found it. And the royal craftsmen who made it were long gone. So replacing it was impossible. His driver glanced back. "Your Highness, traffic is heavy today." Tobi sighed. "I can see that." Suddenly, his eyes froze. Through the tinted window, he saw a boy walking between cars, selling water. But that wasn't what shocked him. It was the boy's neck. The bead. His bead. "Stop the car!" Tobi shouted suddenly. The driver slammed the brakes. Cars behind them honked loudly. But Tobi didn't care. His heart pounded violently. "That bead," he whispered. "That is my bead." The boy approached the car window, thinking it was a customer. "Buy water, sir?" he asked calmly. Tobi stepped out of the car slowly. His eyes locked on the necklace. There was no doubt. That bead belonged to him. His voice became sharp. "Boy." Tay looked up. "Yes, sir." "Where did you get that bead?" Tay blinked. "What?" Tobi stepped closer. His tone hardened. "I asked you a question." Drivers nearby watched curiously. "Where did you get that bead?" Tay remained calm. "I thought you wanted to buy water." Tobi frowned angrily. "I stopped because you have something that belongs to me." Tay touched the bead gently. "My mother gave it to me." "Your mother?" Tobi snapped. "Where did she get it?" The boy answered slowly. "She told me it belongs to my father." Silence. Cars honked around them. But neither of them moved. Tay looked straight into Tobi's eyes. Then he asked the question that made Tobi's stomach tighten. "Are you my father?" Tobi reacted instantly. "No." His voice came out too fast. Too defensive. "No, I am not your father," he said firmly. "Then who is your mother?" he demanded. Tay shrugged. "She's nobody." Tobi scoffed. "Well, that explains everything." He pointed at the bead. "Give it back." Tay hesitated. "My mother said I must never remove it." "That bead is mine." Drivers nearby started shouting. "Move your car." Traffic was piling up. Tay slowly stepped backward. Fear appeared in his eyes. Then suddenly, he ran. "Hey!" Tobi shouted. The boy disappeared between cars like a shadow. Tobi chased after him briefly, but traffic swallowed the boy completely. Gone. Tobi stood there breathing heavily. His driver approached carefully. "Your Highness, what happened?" Tobi looked down the road where the boy vanished. His mind was spinning. That boy. Something about him felt strange. Familiar. When he got home that night, Tobi stood in front of his mirror. He stared at his own reflection. Then suddenly he remembered the boy's face. The same eyes. The same jawline. His heart skipped. "No," he whispered. "That's impossible." But doubt had already entered his mind, and it refused to leave. Prince Tobi did not sleep that night. He lay on his massive king-size bed inside the royal palace in Lagos, staring at the ceiling while the air conditioner hummed softly in the background. But his mind refused to rest. The image of the boy kept returning. The boy's face. The boy's calm voice. And most importantly, the royal bead. Tobi turned on his side and sighed deeply. "How could that bead end up on a street boy?" he muttered. He stood up and walked slowly toward the large mirror across the room. He stared at his reflection. Then suddenly the memory of the boy's face appeared in his mind again. The same nose. The same eyes. The same stubborn expression. Tobi shook his head quickly. "No, that's impossible." He splashed water on his face. "I must be imagining things." But the thought refused to leave him. And that was the problem. The next morning, the palace was already busy. Servants moved quickly through the marble corridors preparing breakfast for the royal family. Prince Tobi walked into the dining hall looking tired. His father, King Adewale, sat at the head of the long dining table drinking tea. The king was a tall man with a commanding presence. Even in his old age, his eyes were sharp like a hawk. He noticed Tobi immediately. "You look troubled," the king said calmly. Tobi sat down slowly. "Just didn't sleep well." King Adewale studied his son carefully. "You usually sleep very well after your late-night parties." Tobi forced a small smile. "Not last night." The king raised an eyebrow. "What happened?" Tobi hesitated. He didn't want to explain the strange encounter, but something about it bothered him deeply. Finally he spoke. "I saw something strange in traffic yesterday." "Oh," the king asked. "What kind of strange?" Tobi leaned forward slightly. "A street boy selling water." The king nodded. "There are many of them." "Yes," Tobi said. "But this one was wearing something." "What?" Tobi took a deep breath. "My royal bead." The king's teacup stopped halfway to his lips. "What?" "My bead," Tobi repeated. "The one that disappeared years ago." The king placed the cup down slowly. "Are you certain? I would recognize it anywhere." Silence filled the dining hall. King Adewale leaned back in his chair. That bead was made specifically for you by the royal craftsman, he said thoughtfully. No duplicate exists. I know. Did you ask the boy where he got it? Tobi nodded. Yes. And? He said his mother gave it to him. The king frowned slightly. And who is the mother? He said, she's nobody. King Adewale stared at him for a moment. Did he give the bead back? Tobi looked away. No. The king's voice became firmer. And you allowed him to walk away with a royal artifact? Tobi rubbed his forehead. He ran before I could stop him. The king sighed. This is not good. Back on the streets. Meanwhile, under the third mainland bridge, the twins were sitting beside their mother. Their small shelter was made from old tarpaulin and cartons. Taiwo was fixing a broken sandal, while Tae counted the small money he made from selling water. Today was not good, Taiwo said. Tae nodded. Only a few drivers bought water. Their mother sat nearby rocking gently. Sometimes she was quiet. Sometimes she spoke strange things. Sometimes she laughed at nothing. But today she was staring at Tae's necklace. The prince, she whispered. Tae looked at her. Mother, you always say that. She pointed at the bead. That belongs to the prince. You said it belongs to my father. Yes. So who is my father? She suddenly looked confused. Her eyes moved around as if searching for something in the air. The prince, she repeated again. Taiwo shook his head. She says that every time. Tae sighed. I met a man yesterday. Taiwo looked up. What man? The owner of this bead. Taiwo laughed. How do you know he is the owner? Because he said so. And you believed him? Tae touched the bead. He looked rich. Taiwo shrugged. That doesn't mean he is your father. Tae was quiet for a moment. He asked if I stole the bead. Taiwo frowned. What did you say? I told him my mother gave it to me. And? He said he is not my father. Their mother suddenly began laughing. The prince. The twins exchanged tired looks. They had grown up hearing strange things from their mother. Most people in Lagos simply called her the mad woman under the bridge. Nobody believed anything she said. But the bead remained. The only piece of mystery in their lives. Back at the palace, Prince Tobi stood near the balcony overlooking the city. His personal assistant approached. Your Highness. Yes. There is a meeting scheduled in 30 minutes. Cancel it. Cancel it. Yes. The assistant looked surprised. You have never canceled a business meeting before. Tobi grabbed his car keys. I have something more important to do. Where are you going? Tobi walked toward the door. Traffic. The search begins. That afternoon the Rolls-Royce returned to the same road. Tobi looked carefully between the cars. Dozens of street hawkers moved through traffic. But not the boy. Not the bead. Tobi felt frustration rising. Drive slowly, he told the driver. They spent hours searching. Nothing. Finally the driver spoke carefully. Your Highness, maybe the boy works in another area today. Tobi sighed. Maybe. But something inside him felt unsettled. That boy was not ordinary. There was something deeper. Something he could not explain. Nightfall under the bridge. Later that evening the twins returned home tired. Taiwo sat down. I wish we could go to school like other children. Tae nodded quietly. Maybe one day. Taiwo pointed at the bead. If your father is really rich, maybe he will help us. Tae looked uncertain. I don't think he believed me. Taiwo lay back on the carton. What did he look like? Tall. Clean. Expensive clothes. Maybe he was a politician. No. Tae said slowly. He said the bead was made for him. Taiwo laughed. Then why didn't he take it? He tried. And I ran. Taiwo laughed louder. You ran from a rich man? Tae smiled slightly. Yes. Then he looked at the necklace again. His voice became softer. But I think he will come back. The next day, Prince Tobi returned again. He searched the traffic from morning till evening. Still no sign of the boy. The next day, he came again. Nothing. Days turned into a week. Then 2 weeks. Each time he searched the traffic carefully. Drivers began recognizing his car. But the boy was nowhere. Tobi's frustration grew stronger. He stood beside the road one afternoon staring at the endless line of cars. His driver approached. Your Highness, maybe we should go. Tobi sighed. Maybe. Just as he was about to enter the car, a familiar voice shouted somewhere behind him. Cold water. Pure water. Tobi froze. Slowly he turned. And there he was. The boy, walking between cars. The royal bead shining clearly in the sunlight. Tobi's heart began beating faster. Stop him, he told the driver. But this time, Tobi did not want to scare the boy away. He wanted answers. Real answers. Cold water. Pure water. Cold water. The voice floated above the endless sound of car horns and engines. Prince Tobi froze. His eyes moved slowly toward the source of the voice. There he was again. The same skinny boy weaving through traffic with a plastic bowl of sachet water balanced carefully on his arm and around his neck. The bead. The royal bead. Sunlight hit the polished red stones, making them shine like tiny flames. Tobi felt his chest tighten. That's him, he whispered. His driver leaned forward from the car. Yes, Your Highness. That is the boy. Tobi raised his hand. Wait. He took a deep breath. Don't scare him this time. The boy approached the Rolls-Royce again, thinking it was another customer. Cold water, sir? He asked calmly. Tobi rolled down the window slowly. This time his voice was softer. Hello. The boy recognized him immediately. His eyes widened slightly. You again. Tobi stepped out of the car slowly. Cars behind them began honking. But this time the prince didn't shout. He crouched slightly, so they were eye level. What is your name? He asked. The boy hesitated. Then he answered. Te. Te. Tobi repeated. That's a Yoruba name. The boy nodded. Yes. Do you have a brother? Te looked surprised. Yes. What is his name? Taiwo. Tobi's eyebrows lifted slightly. Twins. Yes. For a moment neither of them spoke. Then Tobi pointed gently at the bead. Te, I have been looking for you. The boy frowned slightly. Why? Because that bead you are wearing is very important to me. My mother said it belongs to my father. Tobi nodded slowly. That's what you told me before. Te studied him carefully. You said you are not my father. Tobi looked uncomfortable. Yes. Silence fell again. The traffic noise seemed distant for a moment. Then Tobi spoke carefully. Where is your mother? Te's eyes narrowed slightly. Why? I want to talk to her. My mother doesn't talk much. That's okay. Te shifted his weight. You really want to see her? Yes. Right now? Yes. Te looked at him for a long moment. Then finally he nodded. Okay. He turned and began walking away from the traffic. Follow me. The walk. The Rolls-Royce couldn't follow where Te was going. So Tobi told the driver to park. I will go alone, he said. The driver looked worried. Your Highness, this area is not safe. Tobi straightened his jacket. I will be fine. Then he followed the boy. They walked through narrow streets, past small kiosks, past piles of garbage, past people who looked at Tobi strangely because his expensive clothes did not belong in that environment. After 15 minutes, Te stopped. They were standing under the huge concrete pillars of the third mainland bridge. A small community of homeless people lived there. Makeshift shelters made from plastic sheets and cartons were scattered everywhere. Children ran barefoot through the dirt. Women cooked food over small fires. Men sat quietly watching the world pass by above them. Tobi looked around in disbelief. You live here? Yes, Te answered simply. Where is your brother? Over there. A boy about the same age sat on a wooden crate fixing a sandal. That's Taiwo. The boy looked up. Who is that? He asked. Te shrugged. He wants to see mother. Taiwo's eyes moved to Tobi. He immediately noticed the expensive watch, the polished shoes, the powerful presence. Are you a politician? Taiwo asked. Tobi smiled slightly. No. Then who are you? Tobi didn't answer. Instead he looked at Te. Where is your mother? Te pointed toward a small shelter made from torn tarpaulin. She's inside. Tobi walked closer. Then he stopped. Inside the shelter sat a woman rocking back and forth. Her hair was messy. Her clothes were old and dirty. Her eyes looked distant. Tobi stared in shock. This is your mother? Yes. The woman suddenly looked up. Her eyes landed on Tobi. Then she started laughing. Tobi felt uncomfortable. This woman is mad. Taiwo shrugged. Yes. Te stepped forward. Mother. The woman tilted her head strangely. The prince, she whispered. Tobi froze. What? She pointed at him. The prince came back. Tobi felt irritation rising. This is ridiculous. He turned to Te. How can you say I am your father when your mother is like this? Te's voice remained calm. My mother said the man who owns this bead is my father. Tobi laughed in disbelief. You expect me to believe that? Te said nothing. Tobi rubbed his forehead. This is nonsense. He turned away angrily. I am leaving. He walked away from the shelter. Te watched him go silently. Taiwo whispered to his brother. Maybe he is really rich. Te nodded slowly. Yes. Tobi leaves. As Tobi walked back toward the road, frustration filled his mind. This is absurd, he muttered. A mad woman? How could that even be possible? He got back into his car. The driver started the engine. Did you find the boy's family? The driver asked. Tobi sighed. Yes. And? Tobi shook his head. You wouldn't believe it. What happened? Tobi looked out the window. The mother is a mad woman. The driver looked shocked. A mad woman? Yes. So the story cannot be true. Tobi nodded. Exactly. But even as he said it, something in his chest felt uneasy. Te's decision. Back under the bridge, Te sat quietly. Taiwo nudged him. So what now? Te stared in the direction where the Rolls-Royce disappeared. He lives somewhere important. How do you know? I saw him enter a palace. Taiwo sat up quickly. A palace? Yes. When? The first day I met him. Taiwo whistled softly. So you know where he lives? Tay nodded slowly. Taiwo's eyes widened with excitement. Then let's go there. Tay looked thoughtful. Not today. Why? Because he doesn't believe us yet. Taiwo scratched his head. So what do we do? Tay touched the bead around his neck. We make him believe. A secret plan. That evening something unexpected happened. As the sun began to set, Tay borrowed a bicycle from one of the boys living under the bridge. I will return it, he promised. Then he rode away quietly. Taiwo shouted behind him. Where are you going? To find the palace. Following the prince. Earlier that day, when Tobi left the bridge in his Rolls-Royce, Tay had followed from a distance, riding the bicycle carefully, keeping far enough so the driver wouldn't notice him. He watched as the car passed through the busy streets of Lagos. Then finally, it entered a huge gate. 2 armed guards stood outside. A large palace stood inside the compound. Tay stopped across the road. His eyes widened. So this is where he lives. He watched as the gates closed behind the car. Then he whispered to himself. My father lives in a palace. Back under the bridge. Later that night, Tay returned the bicycle. Taiwo ran toward him. Did you find it? Tay nodded. Yes. Where does he live? In a palace. Taiwo's mouth fell open. A palace? Yes. Taiwo began laughing excitedly. So we are princes. Tay smiled slightly. Maybe. Their mother suddenly began whispering again in the darkness. The prince, the prince. But neither boy noticed the tears slowly running down her face. Because somewhere inside her broken mind, memories of that night were beginning to move. The night everything started. The sun had barely risen over Lagos when Tay woke up. The noise of traffic above the bridge echoed down into their small shelter. Cars rushed to work, horns blaring impatiently, while the people living under the bridge slowly began their daily struggle for survival. Taiwo stretched lazily on the carton beside him. You woke up early today, he said. Tay nodded. Yes. Taiwo rubbed his eyes. You going to sell water already? Tay shook his head. No. Taiwo sat up. Then where are you going? Tay touched the bead hanging around his neck. I'm going to the palace. Taiwo blinked. The palace? Yes. Taiwo stared at him for several seconds before laughing. You're serious? Yes. What if they chase you away? Then they chase me away. Taiwo looked at him carefully. But what if he really is our father? Tay stood up slowly. Then today we will find out. Their mother sat nearby rocking gently. Her eyes suddenly focused on Tay. The prince, she whispered again. Tay looked at her. Mother, I'm going to find the prince. She didn't respond. She simply stared at the bead. The prince. Tay sighed quietly. Then he turned and began walking away from the bridge. The palace gates. The royal palace stood proudly behind large iron gates guarded by armed men. It was one of the most powerful homes in Lagos. Tay stopped across the road and stared at the building. He had seen it once before while following the Rolls-Royce, but standing here now made it feel even bigger. His heart began beating faster. What if Taiwo is right, he murmured. What if they chase me away? But he touched the bead again. My mother said the owner of this bead is my father. He took a deep breath. Then he crossed the road. The guards noticed him immediately. One of them stepped forward. Hey, Tay stopped. The guard frowned. What are you doing here? Tay looked calm. I came to see my father. The guards looked at each other and burst out laughing. Your father? One said. Yes. Who is your father inside the palace? Tay answered simply. I don't know his name. The guards laughed harder. You came to the palace to look for a father whose name you don't know? Tay nodded. Yes. One guard shook his head. Boy, go away before we chase you. But Tay didn't move. My father is the owner of this bead, he said calmly. The guards rolled their eyes. Which bead? Tay lifted the necklace around his neck. The moment the guard looked closely, his expression changed. Wait. He stepped closer. Let me see that. Tay hesitated but didn't run. The guard carefully lifted the bead slightly. His eyes widened. This looks like a royal bead. The second guard leaned closer. You're right. Then he noticed the small tag attached to the bead. He squinted. What is written here? He wiped the tag with his thumb. Then he read it. Prince Tobi. Both guards went silent. They looked at each other again. One of them whispered. This is serious. The other nodded. You stay here, he told Tay. Then he turned quickly and walked inside the palace. Inside the palace, King Adewale was sitting in his study reading documents when the guard knocked urgently. Your Majesty. The king looked up. What is it? There is a boy at the palace gate. The king frowned slightly. Children beg at the gate every day. Why disturb me for that? This one is different. How? The guard swallowed nervously. He says he came to look for his father. The king sighed. And he is wearing a royal bead. King Adewale sat upright immediately. A royal bead? Yes, your majesty. What name is on it? The guard answered carefully. Prince Tobi. The room became very quiet. The king slowly placed his document down. Bring the boy to me. The boy meets the king. A few minutes later, Tay walked into the palace for the first time in his life. His eyes widened as he looked around. Marble floors, large chandeliers, beautiful paintings on the walls. Everything looked like a different world. The guards led him into the king's study. King Adewale looked at the boy carefully. Come closer. Tay stepped forward slowly. The king's eyes moved immediately to the bead. He recognized it instantly. This is indeed Prince Tobi's bead, the king said quietly. He looked at the boy again. What is your name? Tay. And who gave you this bead? My mother. Where did she get it? She said my father gave it to her. King Adewale leaned forward slightly. And who is your father? My mother said the man who owns this bead. Silence filled the room. The king studied the boy carefully. Then he pressed a button on his desk. Call Prince Tobi. Tobi arrives. Prince Tobi entered the room a few minutes later. You called me, father? Then he saw the boy. His heart skipped. You. Tay looked calm. Hello. The king raised his hand. Tobi, do you know this boy? Tobi shook his head immediately. No. The king pointed at the bead. Then explain that. Tobi looked closely. His face tightened. Yes, that is my bead. And how did it end up on his neck? Tobi sighed. I told you about him earlier. The king nodded slowly. Yes, the boy you saw in traffic. He turned to Tay again. You say the owner of this bead is your father? Yes. Tobi crossed his arms. This is nonsense. The king looked at him sharply. Do not speak yet. He turned back to the boy. Where is your mother? Under the third mainland bridge. Tobi shook his head again. Father, this is ridiculous. The king's voice became firm. Silence. He stood up slowly. Tobi, royal matters cannot be treated lightly. Tobi frowned. You can't seriously think. The king interrupted him. There is only one way to know the truth. Tobi's stomach tightened. What do you mean? The king looked directly at him. A DNA test. Tobi stared at his father. A DNA test? Yes. Tobi laughed nervously. That's not necessary. King Adewale's eyes hardened. It is necessary. Tay stood quietly watching them. The king pressed the button on his desk again. Send for the royal doctor. Then he turned back to Tobi. If this boy is lying, the test will prove it. Tobi rubbed his forehead. And if he isn't? The king's voice became very calm. Then we will discover a truth that has been hidden for 13 years. Tobi looked at the boy again. This time more carefully. The resemblance he noticed earlier suddenly became impossible to ignore. His heartbeat slowly began to rise. No, he whispered under his breath. This can't be real. But deep inside him, fear had already begun to grow. Because sometimes, the truth arrives in the most unexpected way. The palace suddenly felt heavy with tension. Prince Tobi stood near the window of the king's study, his arms folded tightly across his chest. He stared outside, but he wasn't really seeing the beautiful royal gardens. His mind was racing. A DNA test? How did things escalate this fast? Behind him, Tay sat quietly in a chair, his small bowl of sachet water still resting on his lap. The boy looked calm, almost too calm for someone standing in the middle of a royal investigation. King Adewale remained seated behind his large wooden desk, his eyes moving slowly between the two of them. Neither of them spoke. Minutes later, the door opened. The family doctor, Dr. Akinwale, walked in carrying a medical bag. Your Majesty, he greeted respectfully. King Adewale nodded. Doctor, we need your help with something urgent. Dr. Akinwale looked at Tay curiously. What seems to be the problem? The king spoke carefully. We need a DNA test between my son and this boy. The doctor blinked in surprise. A DNA test? Yes. Tobi turned around immediately. Father, this is unnecessary, he said sharply. King Adewale's voice remained calm but firm. Tobi, the royal bead around this boy's neck carries your name. We cannot ignore that. Tobi ran his hand through his hair in frustration. This boy could have stolen it. Tay finally spoke. I did not steal it. His voice was steady. My mother gave it to me. Tobi looked at him again. And your mother is the mad woman under the bridge. Yes. Tobi laughed in disbelief. Exactly. Case closed. But the king shook his head slowly. That is exactly why we must confirm the truth. Dr. Akinwale cleared his throat. The test is simple. I only need samples from both of them. Tobi looked at the doctor. And how long will the results take? If we send it to the private laboratory, we can have the results within 24 hours. The room became quiet again. King Adewale stood up. Do it. Tobi sighed heavily. Fine. Let's end this nonsense. The samples. Dr. Akinwale opened his bag and prepared 2 small cotton swabs. He walked toward Tay first. This will not hurt, he said gently. Tay nodded. The doctor rubbed the swab inside the boy's cheek. Good. Then he turned to Tobi. Your turn, Your Highness. Tobi rolled his eyes slightly, but allowed the doctor to take the sample. Once both samples were collected, the doctor carefully sealed them in labeled containers. I will send these to the laboratory immediately, he said. King Adewale nodded. We will wait for the results. The doctor bowed slightly and left the room. After the test, Tay looked around the large office. Everything looked expensive, beautiful, quiet. He had never been in a place like this before. The king noticed his curiosity. Are you hungry? He asked. Tay shrugged. A little. The king pressed the intercom. Bring food. Tobi watched the scene with disbelief. You're feeding him now? King Adewale looked at him calmly. He is a child. He is a stranger. He is a possibility. Tobi shook his head. You're taking this too seriously. The king leaned forward. Tobi, do you remember the night you lost your bead? Tobi paused. Then he frowned. Not really. What do you remember? Tobi sighed. I went to a club. Yes. I drank a lot. Yes. And then, he paused. His mind searched for the memory. But everything after leaving the club felt blurry. I don't remember anything after that, he admitted. The king nodded slowly. That is exactly why we must know the truth. That night, Tay was allowed to stay in the palace guest room. It was the first time in his life he slept on a real bed. Soft mattress, clean sheets, air conditioning. He lay on the bed staring at the ceiling. This place is like another world, he whispered. Meanwhile, in another part of the palace, Tobi sat alone in his room holding a glass of whiskey. He stared at the drink quietly. Could it really be possible? No, it couldn't. But the boy's face. The resemblance bothered him. He stood up and walked toward the mirror. He stared at his reflection. Then suddenly he imagined Tay's face beside his own. The similarity was disturbing. Tobi quickly turned away. This is ridiculous, he muttered. But sleep didn't come easily that night. The next day, morning arrived slowly. Everyone in the palace felt the tension. Servants whispered quietly. The guards talked among themselves. Rumors were already spreading. A street boy might be the prince's son. Prince Tobi walked into the king's study around noon. Any news? He asked. King Adewale looked up from his desk. Not yet. Tay sat quietly in a chair reading a book someone had given him. He looked much cleaner now after being allowed to bathe. Tobi glanced at him. The resemblance felt even stronger now. Just then the door opened. Dr. Akinwale returned. He held an envelope in his hand. The entire room went silent. Your Majesty, he said. The results are ready. Tobi's heart began beating faster. King Adewale extended his hand. Give it to me. The doctor handed him the envelope. For a moment the king simply stared at it. Then slowly, he opened it. His eyes scanned the document carefully. Tobi waited impatiently. Well, the king looked up. His expression was serious. Then he spoke. The results confirm. He paused briefly. Tay is your son. The room exploded with silence. Tobi's mouth fell open. What? The king held up the paper. The DNA match is 99.9%. Tobi stepped backward slowly. No, that's impossible. But the king's voice remained calm. The science does not lie. Tay looked confused. What does that mean? King Adewale looked at the boy gently. It means. He paused. Prince Tobi is your father. Tay blinked. My father. Tobi stared at the boy like he was seeing him for the first time. This cannot be real. His mind searched desperately for an explanation. But the king spoke again. There is still another question. Tobi looked at him. What? Your mother? Tay nodded. She lives under the bridge. The king stood up. Then we must bring her here. Tobi frowned. Why? Because she holds the missing piece of this story. The king turned to the guards. Send men to the third mainland bridge. Tobi rubbed his face slowly. Everything in his life had just changed in a single moment. And the most shocking part was, this story wasn't even finished yet. Because somewhere under that bridge, a woman held the memory of a night Prince Tobi had completely forgotten. Prince Tobi sat down slowly. The words from the DNA report still echoed loudly in his mind. The DNA match is 99.9%. He rubbed his forehead again, trying to process what had just happened. Across the room, Tay looked equally confused. So, you're my father? The boy asked quietly. Tobi looked at him. For the first time, he didn't answer immediately. He studied the boy carefully. The shape of the eyes, the way he stood, the calm confidence in his voice. The resemblance was undeniable now. Tobi exhaled slowly. Yes, he said softly. The word felt strange leaving his mouth. Tay didn't smile. He simply nodded as if he had expected this all along. King Adewale stood beside his desk watching them. Then he turned to the guards. Go to the third mainland bridge, he ordered. Bring the mother here. Yes, Your Majesty, the guards replied. Within minutes 2 vehicles left the palace. Under the bridge, life continued as usual under the massive concrete pillars. People were cooking, children were playing, and Taiwo sat quietly repairing another pair of worn-out slippers. But his eyes kept scanning the road. He was waiting for his brother. "Where is Tae?" one woman asked him. "He went to the palace," Taiwo replied. The woman laughed. "You people and your palace stories." Taiwo shrugged. "Maybe it's true." Just then 2 black SUVs pulled up near the bridge. People immediately stepped aside nervously. 4 men in official palace uniforms stepped out. One of them approached Taiwo. "Are you Taiwo?" Taiwo blinked in surprise. "Yes." "Where is your mother?" Taiwo pointed toward their small shelter. "She's there." The guards walked closer and saw the woman sitting on the ground, rocking gently. Her hair was messy. Her clothes were dirty. Her eyes looked distant. One of the guards whispered to the other, "This must be her." The second guard nodded. They approached slowly. "Madam," the first guard said gently. The woman looked up suddenly. "The prince." The guards exchanged a glance. "Yes," the guard said. "The prince sent us." She began laughing again. "He, the prince." Taiwo stood up quickly. "What is happening?" The guard turned to him. "Your brother is at the palace." Taiwo's eyes widened. "The palace?" "Yes." "And he sent for your mother." Taiwo looked shocked. "What happened?" The guard answered calmly. "The king ordered it." Taiwo's heart began racing. "Does that mean?" But he couldn't finish the sentence. The guards carefully helped the woman stand up. "Come with us," they said. She didn't resist. She simply kept whispering, "The prince, the prince." Taiwo jumped into the second vehicle immediately. "I'm coming too." Back at the palace, Tae sat quietly in the royal garden. Everything still felt unreal. A servant approached him with a tray of fruit juice. "Here," she said kindly. Tae accepted it slowly. "Thank you." Prince Tobi stood nearby watching him. He still didn't know what to say. How do you suddenly talk to a son you never knew existed? Finally he spoke. "You sell water in traffic every day?" "Yes." "Do you go to school?" Tae shook his head. "No." "Why not?" "There's no money." Tobi looked down. For the first time, guilt began creeping into his chest. His son had been struggling on the streets for 13 years while he lived in luxury. He suddenly felt uncomfortable in his expensive clothes. "Hey," he said carefully. "Yes." "You have a twin brother." "Yes." "What is he like?" Tae smiled slightly. "He talks too much." Tobi laughed softly. "Sounds familiar." The arrival. A palace guard ran into the garden. "Your Majesty, they're here." King Adewale walked out immediately. "Bring them inside." A few moments later the vehicles arrived. Taiwo stepped out first. His eyes widened as he looked around the palace. "This place is huge." The guards helped the woman out of the car. She looked even more confused now. "The prince, the prince." Tae ran toward them. "Taiwo." His brother turned quickly. "Tae." The twins hugged each other tightly. Taiwo looked around excitedly. "Is it true?" Tae nodded slowly. "Yes." Taiwo's eyes grew even wider. "He is really our father?" Tae looked toward Prince Tobi, standing a few meters away. "Yes." Taiwo stared at the prince. Then he whispered to his brother. "He looks rich." Tae chuckled. "Yes." Meanwhile, King Adewale approached the woman. "Bring her inside," he instructed. The guards guided her carefully into the palace. Many servants stared in shock. A mad woman walking inside the royal home was something no one had ever seen before. The royal doctor returns. Dr. A. Kinwale arrived again that afternoon. He examined the woman carefully. Her condition was serious. "She has been mentally unstable for many years," he explained. King Adewale nodded. "Can she be treated?" "Yes," the doctor replied. "But it will take time." Prince Tobi stepped forward. "Do whatever it takes." The doctor looked surprised. Tobi continued. "Send her to the best hospital in Lagos." King Adewale watched his son carefully. "And if necessary," Tobi added slowly, "fly her abroad for treatment." The doctor nodded. "That will help greatly." Tobi looked at the woman again. For a moment she looked directly at him. Her eyes suddenly focused. "The prince," she whispered. Tobi felt a strange chill run through him. "Maybe," he murmured. "Maybe she knows something I don't." Later that night, the twins were given a room inside the palace. 2 beds, clean clothes, a large television. Taiwo jumped onto the mattress excitedly. "This is the softest bed I've ever touched." Tae laughed. "Be careful." Taiwo sat up suddenly. "So we're princes now?" Tae shrugged. "I don't know." Taiwo grinned. "But our father is a prince." "Yes." Taiwo leaned back happily. Life just changed. Meanwhile, Prince Tobi sat alone in the palace bar again. But this time he wasn't drinking. He was thinking. 13 years. How could he forget something so important? He closed his eyes. Slowly, pieces of memory began returning. The nightclub, the drinks, the street. A woman sitting under a streetlight. Her voice. "You are sad." Tobi opened his eyes suddenly. His heart began beating faster. I remember. But only a little. He stood up quickly. If the woman recovered, she might be able to tell him everything about that night. The night he had completely erased from his memory. The royal palace had never felt so unusual. Servants whispered quietly in the corridors. Guards exchanged curious glances. Everyone had heard the news. The prince had 2 sons, and they had been living under a bridge. Inside their new room, Taiwo stood in front of a full-length mirror turning from side to side. He was wearing one of the new outfits the palace tailor had brought for them. Look at me, he shouted. Tae sat calmly on the bed watching him. You look like a rich boy now. Taiwo laughed. I am a rich boy now. He jumped onto the bed beside his brother. Can you believe this? Tae smiled softly. No. Taiwo suddenly became serious. But what about mother? Tae looked down. They took her to the hospital. Taiwo sighed. I hope she gets better. Tae nodded. Me too. Prince Tobi's decision. Later that morning, Prince Tobi stood in his father's office speaking with Dr. A. Kinwell. How is she? Tobi asked. The doctor sighed. She is stable for now. But she needs specialized treatment. King Adewale leaned forward. What do you recommend? Dr. A. Kinwell answered carefully. A psychiatric hospital with advanced care. Tobi nodded. Arrange it. The doctor looked surprised. Your Highness. Send her to the best hospital available. King Adewale raised an eyebrow. In Nigeria? Tobi paused. Then he said firmly. No. Take her abroad. The doctor looked impressed. That will increase her chances of recovery. Tobi looked at the floor briefly. If she remembers what happened that night, we need to hear it. King Adewale nodded slowly. Yes. Hospital departure. That afternoon, the palace convoy arrived at the private hospital where the woman was being treated temporarily. She sat quietly on the hospital bed when Tobi entered the room. Her hair had been cleaned. Her clothes had been changed. But her eyes still carried confusion. She looked at Tobi slowly. The prince. Tobi felt the same strange chill again. Yes, he said softly. I'm the prince. She smiled faintly. You came back. Tobi frowned slightly. What do you mean? But she suddenly started humming to herself again. The moment of clarity disappeared. Dr. A. Kinwell spoke quietly. She has moments where her mind becomes clearer, but they don't last long. Tobi nodded. When is the flight? Tomorrow morning. The twins adjust. Back at the palace, the twins were experiencing things they had never imagined. A chef prepared a huge lunch for them. Taiwo stared at the food in amazement. All this is for us. The chef laughed. Yes. Taiwo grabbed a piece of chicken immediately. This palace life is good. Tae chuckled. Eat slowly. Taiwo talked with his mouth full. So, when do we start school? Tae shrugged. I don't know. Just then Prince Tobi walked into the dining room. The twins stopped talking immediately. There was still some awkwardness between them. Tobi sat down slowly. Are you enjoying the food? Taiwo nodded quickly. Yes, sir. Tae answered more calmly. Yes. Tobi studied them quietly. You will both start school soon. Taiwo nearly choked. Really? Yes. The boys exchanged excited glances. Thank you. Tae said sincerely. Tobi nodded. You deserve a better life than the streets. For a moment, none of them spoke. Then Taiwo suddenly asked, Did you really not know about us? Tobi looked at him. No. Taiwo tilted his head. So what happened? Tobi exhaled slowly. That's what I'm trying to remember. The flight. The next morning, the woman was taken to the airport in a private ambulance. Tobi stood beside the vehicle, watching quietly. King Adewale placed a hand on his shoulder. You are doing the right thing. Tobi nodded. I hope so. The plane took off shortly after. Destination, a psychiatric treatment center in London. Now all they could do was wait. 3 months later, life inside the palace slowly settled into a new routine. The twins started attending a private school. Taiwo quickly became popular because of his playful personality. Tae remained more serious and focused on his studies. Prince Tobi began spending more time with them. At first it felt strange, but slowly the bond began forming. One evening they were sitting in the palace garden. Taiwo was chasing a football around the lawn. Tae sat beside Tobi quietly. You're thinking again? Tae said. Tobi smiled slightly. How can you tell? You always look at the ground when you're thinking. Tobi laughed softly. You observe a lot. Tae shrugged. You're my father. The words still felt new to both of them. Tobi looked up at the sky. Sometimes memories come back. Tae looked curious. About that night? Yes. What do you remember? Tobi closed his eyes. The club. The drinks. Walking in the street. Then he paused. And a woman sitting under a streetlight. Tae said nothing. Tobi opened his eyes again. She spoke to me. What did she say? Tobi looked thoughtful. She said, You are sad. Tae nodded slowly. That sounds like mother. Tobi sighed. But everything after that is still blank. The phone call. That night the palace phone rang unexpectedly. A servant answered and rushed to find Tobi. Your Highness. Yes. It's the hospital in London. Tobi grabbed the phone immediately. This is Prince Tobi speaking. A doctor's voice responded. Your Highness, I have good news. Tobi's heart skipped. What is it? Your patient's condition has improved significantly. Tobi straightened. She's getting better? Yes. And something else. What? She has started remembering things. Tobi's grip tightened on the phone. About that night? Yes. The doctor continued. She specifically mentioned meeting a drunk man wearing royal beads. Tobi's heart began pounding loudly. Can she talk? Yes. When? She asked to speak with you. Tobi swallowed slowly. After 13 years. The woman who held the truth was finally remembering. And soon, the full story of that forgotten night would finally be revealed. Prince Tobi could barely sleep after the call from London. He paced back and forth across his bedroom, his mind racing with questions that had haunted him for months. The woman was remembering. After 13 years of confusion, madness, and silence, she finally remembered. Tobi stood by the window looking out over the city lights of Lagos. What really happened that night? He whispered. Behind him, the palace clock struck midnight. But sleep never came. The video call. The next morning, a secure video call was arranged between the palace and the hospital in London. King Adewale sat beside Tobi in the royal study. Tay and Taiwo sat quietly on the sofa. None of them spoke. The screen flickered. Then the doctor appeared. Good afternoon, Your Majesty, he greeted. King Adewale nodded. How is she? The doctor smiled slightly. She has improved greatly. Can she speak clearly now? Tobi asked. Yes. The doctor turned the camera slightly. A woman sat calmly in a chair beside him. Her hair was neatly braided. Her face looked cleaner and healthier. But her eyes carried a deep sadness. Tay gasped softly. That's Mother. Taiwo whispered. She looks different. The woman slowly looked up at the screen. Her eyes landed on Tobi. For a moment, no one spoke. Then she whispered softly. Prince Tobi. Tobi leaned closer to the screen. You remember me? Yes. Her voice was calm now. No laughter. No confusion. Just memory. King Adewale leaned forward. Madam, can you tell us what happened 13 years ago? The woman took a deep breath. Yes. Her story. She closed her eyes briefly. I used to work at a small restaurant in Lagos. Tay and Taiwo exchanged surprised glances. You were not always like this? Taiwo asked quietly. She shook her head slowly. No. Her voice trembled slightly. I had a normal life. Tobi listened carefully. What happened? She continued. One night, I was walking home from work. It was very late. The streets were quiet. Then she looked at Tobi again. And I saw you. Tobi's chest tightened. You were drunk, she said gently. Very drunk. King Adewale glanced at his son. Tobi looked down. I remember the club, he admitted. She nodded. You were walking without direction. You looked lost. She paused. I spoke to you. Tobi whispered. You said I was sad. She smiled faintly. Yes. Tobi closed his eyes briefly. The memory was becoming clearer. You sat beside me on the street, she continued. You talked about the pressure of being a prince. You said nobody understood you. Tobi nodded slowly. Yes, I remember that part. Her voice grew softer. You held my hand. Tobi's heart began pounding. You said you didn't want to be alone that night. Silence filled the room. The twins watched quietly. The woman looked down. You kissed me. Tobi inhaled sharply. And then, she paused again. You took me behind the building near the street. Tobi's eyes widened slightly. And we slept together. The room became completely silent. Tay and Taiwo looked stunned. King Adewale sat back slowly. The woman continued quietly. You were so drunk that after it happened, you passed out for a few minutes. Tobi whispered. My bead. She nodded. Yes. When you stood up to leave, your bead fell. You didn't notice. I picked it up. Tobi rubbed his face slowly. That's how you got it. Yes. She looked up again. I tried to call you back. But you were already walking away. Her voice trembled. I didn't know your name then. I only knew you were a prince. King Adewale asked gently. What happened after that? Her face darkened. A few weeks later, I lost my job. Why? Tay asked. Because I was pregnant. The twins froze. Her eyes filled with tears. The restaurant owner said I was a disgrace. They threw me out. And the man who promised to help me disappeared. Tobi swallowed slowly. So you ended up on the street. Yes. And when the babies came, nobody believed me when I said their father was a prince. Tay lowered his head quietly. Taiwo wiped his eyes. The woman continued softly. I kept the bead because it was the only proof. And when Tay grew older, I gave it to him. She looked at Tobi again. I never lied to them. Tobi's chest felt heavy. He finally spoke. I'm sorry. His voice cracked slightly. I didn't know. She nodded. I know. The emotional moment. Taiwo suddenly stood up. Wait, so everything Mother told us was true? Yes, she said gently. You are Princess. Taiwo looked shocked. Then he turned to Tobi. So you really are our father? Tobi nodded slowly. Yes. Tay walked closer to the screen. Mother, are you coming home? Her eyes softened. Yes. The doctor spoke again. She has made great progress. She can return to Nigeria soon. King Adewale smiled. Prepare everything. After the call, the screen went dark. Silence filled the room again. Tobi stood still for a long moment. Then he walked slowly to the window. He looked out at Lagos again. But this time his thoughts were different. The truth was finally clear. And now, he had a responsibility. Tay walked beside him. You look sad. Tobi looked at his son. I'm thinking about the years I lost with you. Tay shrugged slightly. We found each other now. Taiwo joined them. Yes. He grinned. And now we live in a palace. Tobi laughed softly. You two are something else. King Adewale stood behind them proudly. Sometimes destiny works in strange ways. The day the woman returned to Nigeria, the palace felt different. Not tense, not confused, but expectant. A quiet excitement filled the air. Servants moved quickly through the halls preparing for her arrival. The twins waited anxiously in the palace courtyard. Taiwo could barely stand still. He kept pacing back and forth. When will the plane land? He asked for the 10th time. Tay checked the watch one of the palace aides had given him. In about 30 minutes. Taiwo groaned dramatically. That's too long. Prince Tobi stood a few meters away watching them. He had never seen two people so excited just to see their mother. But it made sense. For 13 years, she was the only parent they had known. King Adewale joined him quietly. You look nervous, the king said. Tobi nodded. I am. Why? I don't know how she will look at me. King Adewale placed his hand on his son's shoulder. She already forgave you. Tobi exhaled slowly. I know. But forgiving someone and facing them are two different things. The arrival. An hour later, the palace convoy returned from the airport. The large gates opened slowly. The twins ran forward immediately. The car door opened. The woman stepped out. This time she looked completely different. Her hair was neatly styled. She wore a simple but beautiful dress provided by the palace. Her posture was calm. Her eyes were clear. For the first time in 13 years, she looked like the woman she used to be. Mother, Taiwo shouted. The twins ran toward her. She opened her arms. They crashed into her tightly. My sons, she whispered emotionally. Tay held her for a long moment. You're really better now. She nodded. Yes. Taiwo wiped his eyes quickly. Good, because palace life is too good for you to miss. Everyone laughed softly. Then she looked up. Her eyes met Prince Tobi. The courtyard became quiet again. Tobi stepped forward slowly. I'm glad you're back. She smiled gently. Thank you for helping me. Tobi nodded. You deserve a new beginning. She looked at the twins. And so do they. Life begins to change. Over the next few weeks, everything began settling into a new rhythm. The woman was given a comfortable home inside the royal compound. She started receiving education and therapy to help rebuild her life. The twins continued attending their private school. They were learning quickly, especially Tay. One evening, he showed Tobi his mathematics homework. You solved all of this? Tobi asked, impressed. Yes. Taiwo leaned over the table. He studies too much. Tay rolled his eyes. You talk too much. Tobi laughed. You two balance each other. But just as life seemed peaceful, a problem quietly began growing inside the royal court. The royal council meeting. One afternoon, King Adewale summoned the royal council. The council consisted of elders, advisors, and traditional chiefs responsible for protecting the traditions of the kingdom. They sat around the large meeting table inside the palace chamber. Prince Tobi sat beside his father. The chief elder cleared his throat. Your Majesty, we have heard troubling news. King Adewale remained calm. What news? About the twins. Tobi stiffened slightly. What about them? Another elder spoke. We understand they are your sons. Yes, Tobi replied firmly. The DNA test confirmed it. The elders exchanged glances. That may be true, the chief elder said. But there is still a concern. What concern? The king asked. Their mother. The room grew quiet. The elder continued. She was a madwoman living under a bridge. Tobi's jaw tightened. She was sick. She has been treated. But the story surrounding their birth is unusual. Tobi leaned forward. What exactly are you saying? The elder answered carefully. For centuries, royal heirs must come from honorable marriages. And these boys were born from. He paused. A street encounter. Tobi's eyes flashed with anger. They are still my sons. The elder nodded. Yes. But can they truly be accepted as royal heirs? The words hung heavily in the air. King Adewale looked at Tobi. Then he looked at the council. My grandsons are royal blood. One of the elders spoke again. We do not question their blood. But tradition matters. Tobi stood up. Tradition? His voice rose. My sons survived 13 years on the streets. They worked in traffic to survive. And now you want to question their worth because of where they were born? The room fell silent. Tobi continued passionately. They did nothing wrong. They deserve everything this family can give them. King Adewale watched his son carefully. The elder sighed. This decision cannot be emotional. It must follow tradition. Tobi clenched his fists. So what are you suggesting? The elder spoke slowly. A royal hearing. King Adewale raised an eyebrow. A hearing? Yes. The council will review the matter and decide if the twins can officially be recognized as royal heirs. Tobi stared at them in disbelief. You want to put children on trial? No, the elder replied calmly. We want to protect the throne. King Adewale leaned back in his chair. Very well. Tobi looked at him in shock. Father. But the king raised his hand. Let the hearing happen. He looked at Tobi. Sometimes the only way to silence doubt is with truth. Later that night, Tobi sat in the palace garden with the twins. They were eating ice cream. Taiwo had already finished 2 cups. What's wrong? Tay asked. Tobi hesitated. Nothing. Taiwo squinted. You make that face when something is wrong. Tobi sighed. The royal council is questioning your place in the family. Taiwo blinked. Why? Because of the way you were born. Tay looked thoughtful. So they think we're not good enough. Tobi looked at him seriously. You are more than good enough. Taiwo crossed his arms. Then we'll prove it. Tobi smiled slightly. You sound very confident. Taiwo grinned. We survived the streets. This palace thing should be easy. Tobi laughed for the first time that day. Maybe the council didn't realize something important. These boys were stronger than anyone expected. The grand hall of the palace was silent, yet charged with tension. The royal council had convened, elders in full traditional attire, advisors with serious expressions, and the king sitting at the head of the chamber. Flags and royal banners adorned the walls, and sunlight poured through the tall windows, illuminating the polished marble floor. Prince Tobi walked in, holding Tay and Taiwo's hands firmly. The twins' eyes were wide with a mix of awe and nervousness. This was their first official encounter with the power of the palace, and the weight of history pressed down on them. King Adewale rose. Today, we settle the matter of our young princes, he declared. The council has heard all reports, the DNA results have been confirmed, and the mother has returned and testified. Yet, tradition demands we make a formal ruling. An elder stood slowly. Your Majesty, these boys are born from circumstances that, while innocent, are unconventional for royal heirs. There must be consideration for the customs that preserve our lineage. Tobi's jaw tightened. Unconventional? They survived life under a bridge. They endured hunger, hardship, and ridicule. They are strong. They are resilient. And they are my sons. That makes them worthy. His voice echoed across the hall, commanding attention. The council murmured. One advisor whispered, he speaks with fire. Another nodded. The mother, standing beside the twins, held Tay and Taiwo close. Her eyes were shining. These children are of royal blood, she said firmly. I am no longer mad. I am here to support them, and they deserve recognition. Tay stepped forward, his small chest rising with courage. I am Tay, he said clearly, looking at the elders. This is my brother Taiwo. We may have grown up in the streets, but we are princes. Our father is Prince Tobi. That makes us heirs, too. Taiwo added confidently. We will live up to the responsibility. We will make our family proud. Tobi felt a lump in his throat. His sons were speaking with a strength he had never imagined. The king cleared his throat. Enough. His voice boomed. The council has heard the testimony. DNA has proven their lineage. And courage and integrity, these are also qualities of royalty. He turned to the elders. What say you? The chief elder finally spoke. By tradition, a child born outside marriage could be denied certain privileges. But tradition also values truth, honor, and bloodline. In this case, the truth cannot be ignored. The boys are indeed the sons of Prince Tobi. Another elder raised his hand. We accept them fully into the royal family. A cheer rose quietly through the hall. Servants and attendants exchanged relieved smiles. Tobi stepped forward, kneeling slightly in front of his sons. You are officially recognized as princes of this kingdom, he said softly. And I promise to teach you everything you need to know about this family and the responsibilities you carry. The twins hugged him tightly. Taiwo whispered, We're really princes now, father. Tay nodded, tears glistening in his eyes. And we will never let you down. King Adewale approached Tobi and placed a hand on his shoulder. You did the right thing, son. Blood is stronger than tradition, and love stronger than fear. You have honored your family today. Tobi looked around the hall at the people who had doubted them, at his sons who had finally found their place, and at the mother who had endured so much. This is a new beginning, he said. The family united. In the weeks that followed, life in the palace transformed. The mother, now fully recovered, took an active role in the twins' upbringing. She learned to communicate again, her mind clear and her heart full. She shared the story of their early life with honesty, ensuring the twins understood their journey without shame or fear. Tobi worked with them every day. He taught them the history of the kingdom, royal etiquette, and even combat training, skills every prince needed. The twins thrived in their new environment. Taiwo's humor and charisma made him a favorite among palace attendants, while Tay's intelligence and calm demeanor impressed tutors and elders alike. One evening, the family sat together on the palace balcony overlooking Lagos. The sun was setting, painting the sky with gold and crimson. Tobi smiled at his sons. Do you know why I never gave up on finding you? Tay shook his head. Because even when I was blind from alcohol and confusion, my heart knew there was a part of me I had lost. Taiwo grinned. And you found us. Yes, Tobi said, his voice soft. And I will never let you go again. The mother joined them, wrapping her arms around Tobi. We are a family, she said. And nothing can take that away. The twins nestled between their parents. For the first time in 13 years, they felt truly safe. A legacy restored. The royal council, impressed by the twins' character and Tobi's actions, formally recognized them as heirs. They would grow up with the privileges, education, and responsibilities of true princes. The palace celebrated with a grand feast. Music filled the halls, laughter echoed in every corridor, and the people of Lagos marveled at the story of the twins who had risen from the streets to royalty. Prince Tobi, once lost in his own mistakes, now found purpose in his family. The mother, once wandering the streets, now stood proudly as a queenly figure. And the twins, once struggling to survive, now carried the weight and honor of their lineage with dignity. King Adewale addressed the family during the feast. Today, we celebrate not just bloodline, but courage, resilience, and love. Let this story remind us that destiny has a way of guiding those it favors. Tobi raised his glass to his sons. To Tay and Taiwo, my sons, my heirs, and my pride. The twins raised theirs in unison. To family, the palace erupted in cheers. That night, as Tobi looked out at the city lights of Lagos with his family by his side, he realized something profound. Life could take the darkest paths, but love and truth always had a way of finding their way back home. And so, the family lived happily ever after, united, strong, and ready to face the future together. Destiny brought them together. Truth revealed the past. Love built the future. If this story moved you, subscribe to the Story Loom for more unforgettable African stories. Turn on notifications so you never miss the next story. Tell us where you are watching from, and thank you for watching.